Good afternoon, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call our City Council work session to order. Please be advised that we are having technical difficulties, therefore it will necessitate the need for voice voting. Members of council, if you desire to speak or make a motion, please raise your hand and I will try to recognize you in the order that you've raised your hands. If I do not do that properly, don't take it personally. I got a lot of eyes, but I can only go one way or the other, but I'll do the best I can. Or you can knock. Knock's good. With that being said, we do have several very important items, I believe, in our work session this afternoon. Our first one is the City Assessor's Annual Report to City Council. Mr. Manager.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, the Assessor, Mr. Holt Butt, will present to you this afternoon.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. It's hard to believe it's been a year since I was standing up here giving you my report last year, but it has. Time flies. So what I'll do tonight is I'll briefly talk about my office a little bit. We'll talk about the market, and I'll give you some statistics, some key statistics that we use when we analyze the market. I'll present my assessment results, and then we'll talk about some next steps in the rest of the year. So assessors derive their authority from Chapter 32 of Title 58.1 of Virginia State Code, and I'm not going to read all this, but I'm just going to say that the most important thing here is that the code requires us to strive for 100% of fair market value. Again, this is information I put in every report, and you've seen this before, so I'm not going to read it. This is the definition of fair market value. It's a definition that arose in a court case in Virginia years ago in Richmond, and this definition has stood the test of time in the courts for many years. Again, my mission statement for the office, we make a lot of commitments in here, and it's very important to me that we operate and live by this statement. Again, I won't read it, and because we don't have a whole lot of time, but I want to get to the good stuff. But anyway, like I said, this statement's very important to me, and we try to live by it as much as we can. Here you see some of our daily functions, and I'd like to highlight the last bullet as the most important to me, providing assistance to the public. It's important to me that we be transparent in what we do, we be available to the public, and I think we are. We try to be, and I try to be personally. And I think our new website provides a lot of transparency that we didn't have before, and we're continuously trying to upgrade that. The ticket process for getting things done has slowed down since we were new, but there are constantly things being added to it. You might not really see them, but we know they're there, and so that's a work in progress and will be forever, I think. So some of our ongoing organizational objectives, we continue to invest in people. We invest in staff development. Education is very important to me for my appraisers. We have a career progression program. It's now about a year into it, and it's worked very well for my staff. I continue to have my employees engage in things outside of the office, in the community. And we're always adding modules to our CAMA system and turning on modules to our CAMA system, which makes our job a lot easier. All right, so now we'll get into some of the market statistics. As you know, it's all over the news the last couple of years. Interest rates have gone up considerably. The annual 30-year fixed rate mortgage for 2023 was at about 6.81%, a whole lot higher than that 2.9 back there in 2021. But it honestly didn't have a huge impact on values. Had an impact on number of transactions, those kinds of things. I think it slowed transactions on the commercial side, but the residential side, the transactions sort of caught up with themselves at the end of the year, and but we still got a situation where supply is very low. Demand's not what it was, but with the supply being so low, the prices have held up. So here you see the transfers, and honestly, about midway through the year, we looked at these transfers and compared them to last year, and it was about half of what was going on the year before, midway in the year. Third and fourth quarters, transfers really took off. Rates had dropped a little bit at that point. So we ended up close to the number of transfers we had last year, but not quite as much or as many. Foreclosures. Foreclosures have picked up this year. Not surprising to me. I think I've stood up here a couple years and been very surprised at how low foreclosures were. I thought they would have been much higher last year, and I thought they would have been a little bit higher than this year, but that number's inching up. I don't think we'll see anything the likes of back in 2015 or 16, but I do see that number climbing up again this year. The median days on the market for sold properties, and these are single-family detached properties, is set at 20 on average for the year. It's up a bit, still less than 30, which is good, but again, that's a result of a low supply and not a high demand, but the demand is higher than the supply right now. So this number is pretty good. Sorry. Median sales price. The median sales price, and this again is single-family detached homes, it's fallen a little bit this year. And honestly, I believe that it's a function of we've moved away from those times where people were bidding on houses, where these bidding wars were happening. They're still selling pretty quick, but we're not getting that big demand like we had a few years ago. Supply again's still low, but the bidding wars aren't really happening like they were. So, yeah. And it's also a function of what's sold out there. So, 88 foreclosures can have an impact on that over the course of a year as well. This chart is a summary of all residential parcels attached and detached by quarter, and it's got your median list price, average list price, sales price, and then marketing time. And you can see that coming out of the gate in the first quarter, it was pretty slow, and the numbers didn't look very good. But as the year went on, we bumped these numbers back up, and the market kind of caught up with itself. So now we're going to flip over to the commercial side for a little bit. Commercial's a little bit different animal. We don't appraise commercial by neighborhood. We appraise them by category. So we separate them up into categories such as multifamily, industrial, retail, and office. And there's others, but those are the big four, and they're the four that I'm going to talk about here tonight. As far as multifamily, what we do in our office is we class them A, B, and C. And those classes, are based on the age, the location, the amenities, walkability, things like that. Quality of the units, size of the units in some cases. So these stats encompass the entire multifamily market, but we appraise them, on these class levels. So vacancy rates are around 5%. That's down 3% from a year ago. The long-term average is about 7%. The number of delivered units this year was 359. The number of absorbed units is 459. Rent growth was 1.1%, and our average rents now for apartments across all classes is $1,620 per month. And overall, in the past 3 years, the rents have grown by about 12.6% in the multifamily sector. And then for the sales in 2023, the market price is at about $207,000 per door. All right, the industrial market. Here in Suffolk, there's two distinct areas in this industrial market, and I split them up here. But industrial can include manufacturing facilities, distribution warehouses, cold storage facilities, those kinds of properties. Vacancy rates are at about 5.9%, and that's increased over the last 12 months. However, the rate of increase is less than the entire, what we call the Norfolk region. So we've delivered about 2 million square feet in 2023 and absorbed about 1.9 million square feet. Rent growth in this sector is about 8.1%. In the past 3 years, that's up 31.8%. Suffolk is still considered an affordable market in this sector. Out here in the south side, rents average about $8.30 a square foot, whereas the Norfolk area average is about $10.10 per square foot. And then the industrial market on the north side, vacancy rates are 0. This is a much less active market as far as new construction. Number of delivered units was 0 in 2023. Absorbed units about 12,500 square feet. Rent growth at about 7.4%. The average rent in the north side is $9.80 a square foot, and it's still below the region average. The retail sector. And again, this includes strip centers, neighborhood centers, general retail, those kinds of things. Vacancy rates are at about 1.8%. New units delivered in 2023 are 55,000 square feet. Units absorbed about 59,000 square feet. Rent growth was positive at 3.2%. And at an average of $21 per square foot in this market, it's up about 11.3% in the last 3 years. And the retail space sales volume for 2023 was 2.9 million. And then lastly, the office market. Again, we split these up into classes, Class A, B, and C. And Class A's tend to be your medical office buildings. And then they sort of step down from there based on where they are, how old they are, what amenities they offer, and the quality of the structure. Vacancy rates are at 2.7%. There was no square foot, no units delivered in 2023. The absorbed units were about 39,000 square feet. Rent growth was at 1.2%, and office complex sales volume for 2023 was about $6.4 million. So what does that mean for our reassessments? I'll give you some numbers here. We have now total parcel count of 42,025 parcels. That's taxable parcels. On the residential side, there's 37,813. Commercial, 2,567, and agricultural parcels, about 1,645. In this reassessment, residential property values increased by $589.4 million. Commercial property values increased by $227.8 million, and ag property values increased by $33.4 million. The total citywide value increase was $850.7 million, or 5.41%. This gives you a comparison of where we were and where we are now. In our land book, July 1, 2023, was at $15.7 billion. This proposed assessment is sitting at almost $0.6 billion. And again, this is an estimate. There's still things to be done. We still have our appeals that'll happen in the spring, both informal and Board of Equalization. We'll probably lose a little bit of value there, but we'll make it up with new construction that'll be added for July 1. There will be a lot of that new construction that'll be added, both completed construction and partials that we will put on. So again, the total percentage increase is about 5.4%, $850.7 million, and about almost $9.3 million in revenue based on the $1.09 tax rate. A little additional information here. The Disabled Veterans Program is growing like crazy. We have 1,733 recipients now. We had 1,397 last year. The total assessed value of those properties is $737 million. There are $8 million in annual exonerations in that program, which is up from $4.2 million last year. And then your Senior Citizens Tax Relief Program, that's basically level from last year. We're at 1,257 recipients, $276.6 million in assessed value, and annual exemptions about $2.7 million. So where do we go from here? We will be mailing assessment notices to all property owners in the city sometime early March, hopefully by the end of the first week, but it may bleed over into the second week of March. We will conduct informal appeals in the office through April. The Board of Equalization will be conducted in May, and their decisions will be made final by June 30th. Staff will continue to process the new construction and alterations for the end of the year, and the land book will be produced at the close of the fiscal year and will be effective July 1, 2024. So I mentioned that I like full transparency, and this next slide is just something I wanted to say. But, I'm almost home. So it's about between 45 and 60 days, and it'll be done. So I'm real happy with that. And before I take any questions, I just want to say, none of this, I get to stand up here and tell you what these numbers are and all that, but it's my staff that's responsible for all this, and I just want to thank them. It's a great bunch, starting with Kevin and going right on down through the office. So happy to have them. Love them like family, and so yeah. Anyway, I'll take any questions y'all may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Butt. And I know your house has been a long journey.
It has.
Looks like it's coming together. I do want to correct my last statement in regards to voting. If you want to speak, go ahead and push your button. I think we're okay here as far as the being able to comment part, but the issue could be with your ability to vote. So the vote will be by roll call. The clerk will call your name, but let's go ahead and give it a shot here, and we'll see how we go. Councilman Fawcett?
Thank you, Mayor. Billy, I appreciate you coming up. I know you gave me a little heads up this was coming, and a couple of just observations. You know, last year we went through quite of a tedious time because the assessments were sky high for some people, and we heard a lot of chatter about that. And of course, I think your office handled a majority of it, and hopefully has squelched it down, which is good because, you know, we used to, I know myself and a few others that have been on the council a while, you know, a few years back before you came, our phones used to ring like constantly all day long about issues, about property values, this, that, assessments and all. So it doesn't ring that much anymore, if any. Not for me anyway. So that means, it tells me that your leadership and your staff is doing the right thing by intercepting these people that have issues. And I imagine when the assessments go out and they go up again, we can stand by because it's just seems like not even 12 months, and here we are again, going up a little bit, and hopefully we're not going to go up as drastically as we did because we did some catch-up in the last go-around. So hopefully that won't be the same this time, and the pain might be less on the homeowners because things are still not that good out there. People are still having tough times, and, you know, we can see some of this with the, you know, the reflection of the numbers here. Even though people are still renting and buying, it's slowed down a little bit. But again, it could be housing stock too that creates some of that issue. But I just want to tell you, I appreciate it. Look to see how it all shakes out when these assessments when they start going to the homeowners, and hopefully maybe the council can offset some of that pain in the upcoming budget year. So we may be able to do something there. So we still got a little bit to talk about before this is all said and done. But
Yeah.
I appreciate your staff, all your folks for doing a great job, being responsive to the people. Number one, people just want to be heard. And if they can get answers, sometimes that really fixes the problem. They don't like, the pain doesn't go away, but at least they get answers. And that's key to everything. So I appreciate it. I thank you very much for coming this evening and putting this together for us.
Thank you, and I will say this, if you all get calls, make sure they call me. I answer my phone, and I will talk to them, and I will get staff out to their house or whatever their property is.
It's very evident
Okay.
that it's taking place. So that's a great achievement in itself. Just keep up the good work over there.
Thank you.
Councilman Bennett?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Buss, thanks for the presentation, and a couple of things, just comments. Foreclosure, I'm really was looking at that, and I'm glad to see it's as low as it is. I was thinking with the market changing and all that it might be sort of increasing more with the interest rates and all going up as far as the reassessments going. One of the other things I want to ask on the assessments, past years we could get a printout of assessed changes in the areas of each area. So when I go out, I like to have it so I can sort of compare and let people know exactly how much it were, how much it went up, why it went up, and all that. So if that's possible, I'd like for us to be able to get that printout.
You all
Again.
will have those in your hand before the citizens get their assessments so that you can look at them. And if you have any questions of me when you look at them, we can deal with that prior to them getting on the phone and calling you. So I'm working on that now, and I will get it to you.
Okay,
Yeah.
I appreciate it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So
Yes, sir.
that'd be great if we could get that. So
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Johnson?
Billy, I'm going to be brief too. Congratulations on your house.
Thank you.
It's been a long process. I think what's imperative, what comes out of all of this to me is look back on your daily functions, and you say you provide assistance to the public, and reiterating what the other council members have said. Thank you. It's a huge difference of what's going forward in our city, and even though people don't like what they're being told, I think they understand the way we're presenting it. So for you and your staff, I think you've done an exceptional job, and we appreciate it. The other thing I'd just like to raise, and it's just a little bit of a concern, is senior citizen tax relief. I want to see that number go up. I hope our citizens wake up to the fact that it's there. And I know that's part of the problem, but especially for people that have lived in this market for 50 years, 60 years, 75 years, whatever, we do have a program in place to help them, correct?
Absolutely. And honestly, that the recipient number has gone down, trended down the last few years, and I'm not sure
Why?
why that is.
Right, because we're getting older. I mean, it's all of their area. And a lot of the ones that I'm concerned about are the people that have lived here their whole lives. And with reassessments, you have no control over it. It is what it is, but we need to keep them in their homes. So they need to be aware that there is help out there. And it's something we as a council can address at some point too if we need to. So, but overall, I have nothing but good things to say. I appreciate what your office has done. I appreciate where we're heading, and we appreciate all those numbers you're going to give us.
Thank you.
Later
And
on.
also about the senior citizen thing, our treasurer, Ron Williams, does a program, and we've moved it up this year into the spring so we get it
Right.
about tax relief. And the purpose of moving it up this year is to be able to get that information out there before the deadline. Last year, it kind of happened after the deadline, which was fine. We had a lot of people in the room, and I think this year we'll get a lot more people, and I'll be here to participate in that, and we'll talk about that.
Well, we appreciate it. Citizens appreciate it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Ward?
Yes, sir. I'd like to congratulate you on the work you have done over the years. It's very noticeable that the work you have done, you and your staff. And like you said, you're very transparent. You can get to you anytime. And I noticed that you always in most of the time in council. So thank you so much for clearing up a lot of things that was not as clear as it is today. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Council, any other questions or comments? Councilman Bennett?
I had one other question I wanted to just ask you, just for information, is the number of veterans that has increased just about double. Is that 100% veterans, or what percentage of that?
They're 100%.
All these are 100%?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There might be a couple in there that are, no, I think they're all 100%. I'm pretty sure they're all 100%.
Okay. Because that's what I was looking at, the number, how much it had increased. And I was just wondering where, because I see a lot of DV tags and stuff.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Yes,
All right, that's the other thing I want to find. Thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments? If not, Mr. Butt, once again, thank you for what I consider is a good news report.
Thank you.
Things aren't up quite as much as they were last year, and we wouldn't expect them to be, because that was rather unusual as to what the numbers look like. This year, they are still up. A couple of numbers jump out at me. I mean, we've got average rent of $1,620. I mean, that's across the region. It's not really high, but it's still a pretty good number, which gives us pause and reason to continue to see what options we have to incentivize affordable housing, because that is a big number for a lot of folks to have to contend with. The vacancy rates, unless it's a misprint, I can't believe how low the vacancy rates are across the spectrum. It's really amazing. I can't believe it would stay that way, but that's always a really good sign, because as long as vacancy rates are low, then that'll maintain the values, especially for your commercial property more than anything else. And with the additional revenue that's being generated, we did offer some relief last year and the year before, so it's maybe something we can look at this year too, but that remains to be seen based on our needs and what the budget's going to look like.
Yes.
But once again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but thank you for everything that your office does and your staff does. It is amazing. Your percentage, and I guess you're giving people the information that they need, and you provide it with a great deal of transparency. Otherwise, there would be a lot more folks calling me, and they just don't. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item will be our 2045 Comprehensive Plan update. And what is most special is that it says presentation of the draft plan. So I'm looking forward to that with great attention. But anyhow, go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, of course, at your seats, you do have a copy of the draft plan. Please take opportunity after today to take a look at that. But with us, of course, you're aware, staff over the past year has provided numerous briefings on various elements pertaining to the update of the city's comprehensive land use plan. This afternoon, we have with us, this afternoon we will be looking at the 2045 comp plan, its first draft. And we have with us planning next, Mr. Jamie Green will present to council the initial draft. Mr. Green is the founder and principal of Planning Next and has spent 30 years working throughout the country on award-winning comprehensive planning efforts. In 2016, Mr. Green was named Fellow of the American Institute of Certified Planners, which is the organization's highest level of recognition. Also, with Mr. Green, we do have Sarah Kelly, who's been the project manager on this. And at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Green to come to the podium to provide you, I think we need a drum roll here,
Yes.
but the initial draft of the comprehensive plan. Jamie?
Thank you so much, City Manager, and thank you, Mayor and council members. Sarah and I are very glad to be here this evening with you. A little bit concerned about following the auditor's report and how well that was received, but that's an aspiration for us here. Sarah and I are going to give you about a 20-minute update, but want to make sure there's time for questions or comments that you might have. As was acknowledged by the manager, we do feel like we're rounding the bend here with you on this process. And we think it's a really special process that you've undertaken. And we're grateful for the trust that you've provided in us to guide what we think is perhaps the most significant policy initiative that a community can have. That if done well and implemented well, it becomes the foundation for so many other decisions that have to be made. Capital improvements, infrastructure, environmental considerations. It is that document that we believe in successful implementation gets institutionalized in the operations, both short-term and long-term in the community. And that is, our expectation. I also want to acknowledge the staff being our shoulder-to-shoulder partner through this process. This is not news to you, but this work is complex. All the moving parts, all the technical work, and then all of the efforts to make sure that people have a choice in the future of their community. And our job is to try to take all of these pieces and integrate them into something that is valuable and useful to you in your work going forward. For us, a comprehensive plan at its core is really just about good stewardship. How are you taking care of your community so that it is sustainable long-term? How do you address, as I said earlier, like the short-term, but also the long-term perspective? When we started working with you, we were fortunate there was planning work to build on. That's not always the case, and so building a strong planning culture makes the planning and the implementation, that much more successful. I was telling one of your staff members earlier about a project where we, in the context of building on work, that about 5 years ago, we were asked to help the city of Montgomery, Alabama. There'd been no plan in Montgomery, Alabama for 55 years. 55 years ago was, at that time, was 1963. And so you know what was going on in Montgomery in 1963 and what happened. And for that entire 55 years, nobody felt like they needed to get organized for that community. Your community is fortunate because you have built a series of plans. Before there was 2045, there was 2035, and there was a plan before that. So that is really, I think, significant for you and your community that you value this work going forward. So I would like to just generally say something about your work and the way that you've gone about it that I think comes to life in the land use strategy, and that is the emphasis that you are placing on like the quality of place. Historically, comprehensive plans have had a section called like land use. How do we use the land? And really smart people really had no idea how that manifested itself in the three-dimensional environment. They knew what the use was going to be, but they didn't really, get tied in at a plan level, more so to zoning, what they were actually creating. And our experience, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, is that the quality of place has never been more important in the choices that people make about where they want to live, work, and invest. I come from a generation, my parents' generation, like if there was a job in Dubuque, Iowa, that's where they were going. There's a generation right now of workers that really want to figure out how do they want to live their life. Then they'll figure out how to make a living. And so if you're talking about economic development and attracting and retaining talent, in my view, you're on the right track with the way the land use and the character approaches come together. We do have some slides, and we're going to go through these here with you. But this is your meeting, so if there are questions as we go, we're welcome to we'll take those, but if you'd like to wait to the end, we'll do that as well. So in terms of this moment, and we do see it as a moment, this plan is not finalized, it's not adopted, it's not policy, but we are on the moment right now to sort of shift, we think, from the planning and the doing. We want to set you up for that. These choices that you make today, if you're serious about implementation, and you should have not started this process unless you were also leaning into what needs to be done when the plan is here, will have impacts for generations. Many communities we work in right now in this, in many places with a culture of like immediate gratification, they want to know like, what are you doing for me now? In many ways, these plans and these decisions you make are going to impact their children, if not their grandchildren. It's a long-term stewardship discussion. We like to say that we need to understand what the trends are in any community, but trends do not have to be your destiny. We go to the trouble, and it is a lot of work, and we believe in it, of making sure that we understand the values in a community. You look at the trends, you look at the values, and you try to integrate those. If there are trends that you like, there better be policies based on what you know about the values of the community to continue those trends. If you see trends you don't like, if people are telling you things are not working, this is the moment to sort of address those pieces. So we've looked at the trends, and the policies reflect, we think, an approach going forward. I mentioned the importance of building off the past. We did not start from scratch, especially in the land use work here. We wanted to build on that, and we learned from people that we engaged with that there are certain things that maybe we could do better. Maybe we could be a little more predictable, a little more specific in the work, and we tried to do that. The process and the work that we've done with the staff and the steering committee has been really engaging in helping get this. We didn't work on this back in our community, then bring it to you. It's been a collaborative effort. And as I mentioned, like, I don't want to emphasize this too much, but I think it's the whole point of planning is to actually do something, and we think we're setting you up for that work. We did shape a set of values, and these are things that you really hold important in your community. And for us, these represent touchstones. When you look at the details in the plan, and the 150 pages in the plan, that's not the appendix, that's the plan. When you look at that, these are things that you might want to have close by. Are these specific projects, policies, and programs really holding true to things like making sure as we go forward, are we going to continue to have a variety of places where diverse people can choose to live, as opposed to more of a mono development sort of? Are we going to have the ability to not just preserve, but strengthen our agricultural heritage. Is that still possible in these recommendations that we have? Economic development, I won't read all of these to you, but the point here is these are touchstones. And if you come upon a particular recommendation and you want to make sure, why is this here or does this belong, this is a good place to go look and say, oh, I see why it's here, because diverse housing stock is important to us. So anyway, these are the values. They're articulated. The context that you exist in is really important. And we know, and we know that you exist in a larger economic, environmental system here. And that has impacts on your population, has impacts on your prosperity and employment. This plan, what I would like it for it to be for you, is a place in this larger regional environment for you to get what you want. If there's certain kind of economic development you want, certain kinds of folks that you want to live here, like what are we doing here to get what we want? You don't have to take all the growth of the region, but you are in a position, as opposed to being in a region that's declining, to get what you want. Predictability is really important, we think, for both developers and people who live in a community. That's what this plan is trying to do, is to line you up. My sense, and I've met a few developers over the years, is that they don't usually like to go to a place where they see from a policy standpoint that there's a conflict. They like to go where there's a smoother path to get what they want to do and meet a community need. On the point of getting what you want, about a year and a half ago, Intel announced a $20 billion chip facility in Ohio, the largest economic development project in the state's history. We have multiple counties in the region all wondering about how do they get what they want. And I can tell you right now, because we're working on several strategies, that those communities that are getting the kind of development that they want right now as a result of 3,000 new high-paid workers and 6,000 construction workers, those that had a vision and were clear about what they wanted and where they wanted it are reaping benefits now that the others are scrambling to sort of figure out. We think that that's the way you should think about the regional context here, is how do you get what you want makes sense for Suffolk here. I've probably said predictability 5 times if anybody's counting here, but we really think that's essential to the work. We think that this is going to help you. This updated plan is going to provide more predictability than your other plan, and we think that you all benefit from this, right? For the decisions that council's supposed to make, you're going to be better positioned because there's a clear adopted policy framework by which to make those decisions. You have better ideas about where infrastructure should go when you're doing capital improvements planning because you have this plan. The staff and you should have better alignment. Planning Commission should have better alignment because there is this new relevant document. Residents should have a better idea and be able to sleep better because they know what's important to you and what is adopted in this process. So everyone benefits from having this clear idea. Now, a lot of times when we get into plans at this point, it's like, yeah, we want predictability, but we need flexibility too. So one of your challenges as you look through here is, are we hitting the sweet spot between having a high level of predictability, but knowing that there is the need to be flexible based on certain circumstances, right? So I know that that's a squishy place to be, but that's where reality resides right now. And the developers, this place doesn't grow or prosper without people who are willing to risk their resources to be here. And so providing predictability for them, again, if they're lined up for what you want, they get treated one way. If they're oppose something, it's a little bit more challenging, but they know that coming in. There's no surprises to this work. So this is the plan from 2035, and from where you're sitting right now and the big splotches of color, like it may look a lot like the other plan that's coming next, but you need to look at the details because we have taken what we've heard in all of our stakeholder engagement about this was a good idea to tie character, the quality of place, to the uses of the land, but we'd like it a little more fine-grained. And so this next map here, and I'm going to toggle back this, but I'm pointing this out so that as you look through the documents in more detail, you're really tuned in to the differences, and I think I may have gotten the wrong button here. But anyway, there's a big distinction here about how we're approaching this versus the other. And I just want to give Sarah a chance, who has worked so hard on this, to talk a little bit about the unique aspects of the 2045 map. You want to drive?
Yeah.
He always wants to drive.
I think what's really important to recognize, and what we tried to be really thoughtful and deliberate about, is tying in this idea of predictability in land use and character to considerations about growth area boundary changes. There is a lot of consistency in this plan with previous plans in terms of the underlying philosophy. A lot of that has to do with, thinking about the downtown core and North Suffolk as really important areas for infill, redevelopment, and some development opportunity, and really looking at that first and making sure that we're thinking about capitalizing upon what's there, the existing infrastructure, the existing development first. So you'll see, in this map, there was a lot of focus on trying to get those areas right. I am also going the wrong way. What we did was to go beyond just looking at land uses, but try to really paint a picture of these specific areas. Help people to understand what the look and feel is going to be like for the dozen land use types that we have now in this existing plan. And then what we did, once we looked really hard at these two existing growth areas, we tried to be thoughtful about the opportunities for potential expansion beyond those areas, opportunities to take advantage of job creation, opportunities to bolster the city's tax base, opportunities to leverage infrastructure where it might be available or could be available in the near future, the opportunity to leverage to elevate the quality of commercial and industrial development, and the opportunity to help direct development away from key agricultural and environmentally sensitive areas that we heard are so important to this city. My slides. So again, this is a lot to absorb right now. You do not have to absorb it all tonight. That's why we have this month, next month, public engagement opportunities coming up. The board's behind you. There's going to be an online map where you can dig in on the details. We'll talk about that at the end. But what I want to emphasize is that when we looked at the growth area boundaries relative to these future land uses, we first looked at these two core areas, and then we thought about where are the strategic locations where Suffolk can most benefit by expanding the boundaries while also being very mindful of some of the things that are really important to the community to protect and preserve. So we aimed through these changes, and again, there's a lot on this slide, but you can see more in your plan, more behind me, that there are 5 areas where there's a proposal for expanding the growth area boundaries, and doing that in a really deliberate and thoughtful way.
Thanks, Sarah. So, in addition to this land use depiction that we've been focused on, the other key part from a policy standpoint is a set of actions, projects, policies, or programs that are in here. And these are focused on a number of critical issues, but also the basic blocking and tackling that any community should be interested in. So there are actions around affordable housing, around agriculture preservation, about the North Core, the downtown, and the villages. They all have attention and actions about them. Quality of place and character are addressed here. And then, how do you actually take a more active role in the development process? Again, this really should be about getting what you and your community wants in this process. But please take a look at that. We organize this, in an action structure, thinking more like a strategic plan, because we also recommend how you should monitor the work and evaluate if you're making progress and getting the outcomes. And so it's structured that way for that benefit. We have worked really hard with the staff and the steering committee to make sure participation in 2045 was a choice for residents. Quite a few of them took advantage of that. Thousands of interactions on this work. But it is qualitative engagement, significant in the opportunities that were provided in this work. And we're going to provide more in this effort here. And we've got some good shots for people. that's not just signing a sign-in shot. We think that people actually came to these meetings and, had a positive experience, which is really important. We show up in a lot of communities where maybe the engagement was not as robust or as genuine, and it really hurts the next time you want to go through a planning process if somebody had a bad experience, compounded by the fact that in my career, this is one of the hardest times ever for a variety of reasons, post-pandemic, incivility in places. But your folks have come out and showed up, and we hope next month they will do the same thing. So we have, right now, 3-person open houses coming up that are going to be the place if somebody really prefers the face-to-face to come. But we also, for a little over a month, are going to have online engagement for people who prefer to do it that way. We want to give them the choices to do either. It's a very similar kind of process, and we mimic what happens in person with what happens in the online engagement. We have a map-based tool, that has the land use recommendations. It has, the report. But this tool will allow anybody to log on, and just like if you're navigating from your phone or on your computer, you'll be able to zoom in and zoom out, and any intersection, any particular place you want to highlight, you can drop a pin and give your comments. And these will all then be automatically populating a database, but also a composite map. So when this 6 weeks of engagement, 5-6 weeks is over, we will have not only like general comments, but have very specific geographic comments to bring back with the staff and ultimately bring back to you about any refinements. We also have the ability on the online in the second activity is about folks giving us their particular sentiments about the actions, being supportive, not being supportive, being confused, whatever. We can actually score that, but also give them a place in an open-ended way to tell us what's important to them. And then the third part of the online engagement is, very similar to the in-person engagement. We like to know something about who's joined us. And as we've done throughout the process so far, we take whoever's self-selected to participate and hold the demographic information up against what the census says you have here. So that gives us a choice if we don't have a good distribution, that we can actually go and get to some other folks to talk about this. In Mobile, Alabama, after doing one of these exit questionnaires, it was determined that there was a young adult population in a particular part of town that wasn't really engaged. So I volunteered to go to the pub and sit down with them. That was a joke. I went to the pub and actually engaged them about a comprehensive plan. And they really appreciated that people were, doing the work to come to get there. But it filled in that demographic. So this is not just for us to collect it, but it's also for us to do something about it when we're finished. So, in terms of moving from planning to action, this is our last slide here, but we really think it's really about supporting what you believe is important. And we want to make sure that this plan memorializes what is important to you about how and where growth should be and the kind of place that you want to have in the future for Suffolk. It is by far not a no growth plan. It's not a super pro growth. It's about trying to find the right balance and the right variety that a vibrant, endurable, and loved community, would have. It's got some specific efforts focused on specific geography. We think that it provides the foundation for you in so much. I'm not sure exactly what your staff reports say right now, but in most communities, when one of these plans is done, that staff report gets revised so that every staff recommendation that comes before you has a reference about how does this relate to 2045. Is this actually advancing us or not? We also think that it provides a good tool for the ongoing dialogue about how communities grow and change. There's been a lot of change, and this is, again, a statement of the obvious for you, but especially since the pandemic, upheaval in all kinds of different markets around office uses, retail. You've always got to be watching what's happening here and be prepared, to adjust. It's just good stewardship. So with that, Sarah and I are happy to take any questions from you about where we are or where we think we're headed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Green. Ms. Kelly, council, questions or comments? Councilman Rector?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for all your efforts in helping us put this together. It's been a long road. I mean, I've been a part of the process since even before I became on council because I was representing the HRRA as a member of the steering committee.
Right.
And one of the things that has taken us down this path, it is the consistent level of active community engagement that we have seen in the process. And not only, it's been a two-pronged, you know, the citizens have wanted to engage with us, and also we have done everything possible, I believe, to get citizen engagement back. And I want to go back to one of your points, you know, a well-written comprehensive plan, and I think what we're going to find in here, you know, hopefully it's not going to be a big surprise, but it's just simply going to be an expansion and a revision of what has come before us.
Right.
And one of the things that I like as a council person of having a well-written comprehensive plan is, as we all know, not every project that comes before us is popular. A lot of projects that come before us have small groups or even large groups or whatnot that are not thrilled with the prospect of something moving forward. Having a well-written comprehensive plan, though, either provides us with a spear or a shield. And it becomes a spear when the plan may not be popular with certain segments, but it fits comfortably into the comprehensive plan and in the overall workings of the city is a good plan to have come forward. The other side of that coin is that if something comes before us and it is not a good fit into the comprehensive plan, it provides a ready mechanism to say, this is not really what we want or where we want it to occur. So I just want to thank you and particularly our staff for having gotten us to this point and can't wait to see the final product.
Thank you so much for those comments and appreciate the collaboration.
Oops, I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. Back on the more opportunities. So first of all, thank you for the presentation. This has been quite a process, and I know we're not to the end, but I feel like we're making really excellent progress and really appreciate you all's hard work and the staff's hard work. In the portion where we're going to have more in-person meetings, and you showed on the 2045 website where people can come in and very specifically comment. So my question is, so you can go online and make very specific comments. Will people who are not computer savvy, do not do computer stuff, will they have an opportunity at the in-person sessions to complete that same information on a piece of paper?
Yeah, or on larger display boards. Or just
Okay.
like a composite, yeah. But it's the same identical questions and content. Otherwise, we couldn't merge them into a
Right.
database. So yeah, same
Okay.
thing.
Great.
Yeah, as you know, you have a very large and complex city, so
Yes.
it's not that easy to present, a land use plan on a single map. So the online, for people who are comfortable with it, hopefully will make it really easy for people to hone in, zoom in and out, but we do know not everybody's comfortable. We're going to try at our workshops to have the maps in very large format as well. We're visiting the venues tomorrow to make sure, so we'll have to see, what's logistically feasible, but we're going to try really hard. We do not want to hide the details in small exhibits that people can't understand. So you please know that we're going to make every effort to allow people to really see, okay, here's where I live, here's the place I spend time, and really zoom in as much as possible. So we'll try to do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think the online tool sounds fabulous,
Yeah.
and hopefully people will take full advantage of that. But I appreciate the giant displays too.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how big Sarah's envisioning, but in Tuscaloosa, the map was 30 feet long, and 20 feet wide, and people got up on the map, like they really wanted to engage with it. So we mean big maps.
Councilman Johnson?
I'll be really brief, and it's a little early to be saying this, but I just want to thank you guys for what you've done for our city. And I think the whole process has been very much what we expected, and it's been a good process. You're going to hear naysayers, you're going to hear this, you're going to hear that, but that's being part of a plan. But I'm very impressed in what you presented tonight. It looks like hopefully we'll get exactly what we asked for.
Right.
And maybe we'll be that city that you'll take out into the world and say, this is how they did it, and that's why they're being so successful. So, but I just want to say thank you.
Great, thank you, and we'd love to.
Council, any other questions or comments? Mr. Green, Ms. Kelly, thank you once again for your presentation. It has definitely been, I think, a rather long, exhaustive journey to get to where we are right now, but we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I want to thank you for what you've done, but just as importantly, if not more importantly, I want to thank our staff for the hours and hours that they've put in. I mean, I can only imagine, what kind of effort it's taken to put this together, and I also want to thank our citizens for their engagement, because it takes everybody to make it work. And to Ms. Kelly's point, when you're looking at a city the size of our city, I've mentioned it before, we are definitely not a one-size-fits-all. What's important in the rural areas is not important downtown, which is not important in northern Suffolk, which is not important to some of our growth areas, which is not important to some of our historic villages. So it is a daunting task to develop a plan with the diversity that our city demands. It's unlike, if we're in Baltimore City, it's Baltimore City, and pretty much everything's a city. So everybody's dealing with the same concerns. I do, and I know you beat a dead horse, but to me it wasn't a dead horse, and that was the predictability. That has been a pet peeve to me when we've had issues come before council, and those that wish to invest in our city, either through residential or commercial development, have been through a process. They've dotted their I's, they've crossed their T's, they've had staff approval, they've had planning commission approval, and when it gets to us, the result is different than what is expected. I think the additional guidance that's going to be provided in this comprehensive plan, to Councilman Rector's point, is just going to be invaluable in not only directing us and helping us with our decisions, but more importantly, for those that are willing to invest in our city and are looking to invest in our city, can rely on that comprehensive plan, because they have the ability to have that same additional guidance. And they will know up front that it's going to be an uphill battle if it is outside of the comprehensive plan. Not that it would be impossible, because there still has to be some flexibility, because we're developing a long-range plan, which has to be fluid because it is a plan. So depending on what happens, then it leaves us the latitude to recommend something outside the comp plan. But most importantly is there will be a degree of predictability, that round pegs and round holes, square pegs, square holes, everybody signs off on it. There's going to be a pretty good assurance that it should happen. Otherwise, those same individuals will choose to do business somewhere else. The cost of putting a project together, the marketing data, the environmental concerns, the engineering, everything that goes into it, if there's not a reasonable expectation of getting the desired result, they will go someplace else. Also with the comp plan, with our diversity, we do have the ability to offer literally any type of living lifestyle that anyone wants. It's just up to you. If you like rural, you like suburban, you like downtown. We've got it. You want 10 or 15 acres, plant some corn and, raise some chickens. We got that. And if you want to live in a mixed-use development in a, kind of a modern neighborhood, we have that too. So I'm really looking forward to delving into this plan. I think it's going to be a huge step for our city moving forward as we determine how we want to look like down the road. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you to the staff, and thank you to our citizens.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank all of you.
Okay, we do have need for a closed session this evening. Madam Clerk, will you please read the motion for consideration?
Item number 1, pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-37, 11A8 and A1, the consultation with legal counsel employed by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the legal advice of such counsel, and the discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for appointment, and the assignment, appointment, and performance of specific public officers or appointees of the city, specifically the appointments as shown on the attached list for vacancies or term expirations for the Community Policy and Management Team, the Early Childhood Development Commission, the Economic Development Authority of the City of Suffolk, the Fine Arts Commission, the Human Services Advisory Board, the Local Board of Building Code Appeals, the Suffolk Sister Cities Commission, the Suffolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority, the Tidewater Youth Services Commission, Western Tidewater Community Services Board, and the Wetlands Board. Item number 2, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3. The discussion or consideration of acquisition of real property for a public purpose or of the disposition of publicly held real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically tax map number 10*46.
Councilman Fawcett.
Move to approve, Mayor.
Have a motion for approval from Councilman Fawcett. Councilman Johnson.
Second?
Second from Councilman Johnson. Is there any discussion of the motion? Hearing none at this time, I'll ask the Madam Clerk to call for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Bennett?
Yes.
Councilmember Butler Barlow?
Yes.
Councilmember Fawcett?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Rector?
Yes.
Councilmember Williams?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ward?
Yes.
Mayor Dooman?
Yes,
The motion is approved by a vote of 8-0.
this meeting stands adjourned, and we will reconvene at 6 p.m.